Zahrada Wiliama Shakespeara.
I'm not refusing, we're not refusing to go over Juliet, mate. Bit Leah. You got some Leah. Got a little Leah. And a third one, maybe?
Othello?
Othello.
Or jealousy?
Welcome everyone to the birthplace of William Shakespeare. First of all, did you enjoy the exhibition that you've just seen? Was it very informative?
Yeah,
Very good. We'd like to know. Right, guys, we're now standing in the house next door to the birthplace at the moment. This house here was constructed about 20 years after the main birthplace itself in 1550. The birthplace was constructed in 1530. That gives you an idea just how old the two buildings are between them. So this was originally obviously separate. It's very, very small. It's just this room here and one bedroom. So this is the type of property that the poorer people would have been living in the time, not a relatively wealthy family like the Shakespeares. So John Shakespeare, William's father, we believe would have rented this cottage out to travellers, because when he bought the house in 1552, he actually purchased this building as well, I believe. So it was very much kind of like a building at this time to rent these kind of houses out to travellers as a way to make a bit more money for himself. And then in November 1582, when John arranges William's marriage to Anne Hathaway, William and Anne actually move into this house and they begin their married life in this cottage. Now, Anne is already pregnant by the time that they get married at 18. They're both 18 years old, and it's quite possible that she gives birth to Susanna, the Shakespeare's first daughter, in this room or in the one bedroom. So the house has got this great connection in many ways. This room down here would have been the living room and the dining room, kitchen, pretty much all rolled into one. You can imagine not a lot of room for a family, although believe it or not, you can fit up to about 12 people in here at any one time in the 16th century, living comfortably. You can kind of imagine the splitting the rooms between the two rooms. The fireplace over there is very big. You need it to be big. Obviously you might be cooking for a large family, and you might need to warm up the upstairs bedroom in the winter time as well. So in the winter you leave the doorway open to the bedrooms, the stairs, let all the heat and smoke actually rise upstairs to warm that bedroom as well. Very, very important that that is done. The main kind of beams and structure of the cottage are 19th century, so they aren't original, but they date back to about 1847, when the house was opened up as a museum for the first time. The oak beam above the fireplace, though, is original, and that dates to 1530, so it's some of the oldest wood that we've got left in the house today. Also, that was the original entrance and exit just behind you there. Not the original door, unfortunately, but still the original door frame for it, which also dates to 1530. The windows would not have had any glass in them at the time, because even for a relatively wealthy family like the Shakespeares, the glass was just too expensive. It was also quite heavily taxed at this time as well. So you'd have wooden shutters over the windows instead of glass, making these rooms appear quite dark and gloomy in the winter time. And that's where the whitewashed walls come in. These are originally made out of plaster, and they've got a bit of lime wash coloured over them to dye them white. The idea of these walls is to allow as much light in here as possible in the winter time. They're going to be a bit cheaper than buying lots of candles, because candles could be some of the more expensive items you could buy in the 16th century. The floor that we're all standing on is not the original floor either, but the flagstones date back to the early 17th century, so they're still quite old. Originally, William Shakespeare would have been quite familiar with an earth flooring cottage, and that would have had lots of straw covered over it. That would have been only cleaned about once a year in the spring, so this is where we get our expression spring cleaning from today. So then guys, once you go through the gap over there in the wall, you're then going to go forward and see the rest of the house, the main birthplace itself. First room next door you'll come to is the parlour. This is the Shakespeare's living room, so they'd all relax here in the evenings, and they would also entertain their visitors and their guests next door in that room as well. That's why when you walk through you'll see a very nice bed, a big four-poster canopy bed like this one here. And that bed is a bit like a status symbol designed to show off the wealth of the family. The Shakespeares are not poor by any standards of the time. They're very much middle class, but they're aspiring to be kind of getting up into the upper kind of society. Because of John's business as a glove maker, he would have had a lot of business contacts around the town, very wealthy people. So he would have wanted to impress quite a lot of his customers. Also next door, you've got the original stone floor. That stone floor in there dates back to 1575 when William was 11, so you'll be walking on the same flagstones that he probably would have tried to use for John. After the parlour, you come through into the dining hall. The dining room is where lunch would have been served. Lunch was main meal of the day from 11 in the morning to 1 in the afternoon. The boys would have gone to school from 6 in the morning until 6 in the evening, so you can imagine those 2 hours for lunch were quite welcome. The girls would have stayed at home and learnt domestic arts from their mother, sewing and cleaning and so on. After the dining room, you then cross the front passageway which divides the domestic side of the house from the business side of the house. The last room that you'll see on the ground floor is the glover's workshop. As you probably heard coming through the exhibition, John Shakespeare was a glover, and he was also a wool dealer, and he was a member of the local council in Stratford as well. So he was a man who would have had quite a lot of influence around the town at this time. In that room, do feel free to try on any of the gloves that you see on the tabletops. They aren't original, so you're not going to damage them or anything. And there'll also be a guide in that room to give you more information about John's business in a bit more detail. After that room, you'd like to then explore the bedrooms upstairs. Once you get to this room here, this is the birth room. This is the room where William Shakespeare was born in 1564. Another guide will give you a little bit more information about the history of that room. Finally guys, can I just please ask that you don't take any photographs or film anything while you're inside the property, outside in the garden, do feel free. Once you get outside as well, once you exit the house, by the benches near the gift shop, there are some actors and actresses dressed in costume, and they will perform some Shakespeare for you. So if you want to hear anything, any requests or anything like that, do ask them, and I'm sure they'll do their best to support you. Okay, thank you guys. If you have any questions before you go, ask me, or ask any of the guys that you see as you go through. Okay, thank you. Enjoy.
Thank you.
This is their living room. This is the original floor. So you're walking on the same floor that Shakespeare walked on. This is their living room. PlayStation. This is their dining room, Annie Mae. Oh look, Annie Mae. She loves the barbecue. Chicken on that.
About 1% proof was all kind of everyday. Everybody would drink it because the water wasn't safe. Typhoid, cholera, lots of really serious waterborne diseases at that time. So everyone, including the tiny children, would be drinking this very low alcohol ale. And one of the things that would have been happening at the back of the house would have been literally kind of microbrewery. A household the size of the Shakespeare would brew their own ale. And they think the word toddler comes from the fact that when these very, very small children would start drinking it, they're like, whoa, we're not used to it. Well, by the time you're about 5 or 6, you're just used to it, you're just adjusted to it. But it would be all day that you'd be drinking this low alcohol ale. So it wasn't all bad in the 16th century. Now, where you are now is the workshop. Now, this is the working part of the house. This is where John Shakespeare, William's father, had his business. John Shakespeare was a glove maker by trade. Very, very good business to be in at that time, seen as rather kind of high-class trade. The drawback, from our point of view, would be John Shakespeare is actually preparing his own animal skins, his own leather. Before he can make these lovely gloves, he's got to prepare the skins himself. Now, these are the lovely end results. All sorts of animals we use. We've got goat, sheep, calf, deer, rabbit skin for the lining, and also, at the time, dog. Oh, as a dog lover, I don't like to think about that, but dog skin gloves would have been available to you. Dog skin was actually an enormous luxury, very, very expensive, worn by royalty. I'm assured that Elizabeth I only ever wore dog skin gloves, but none here today, as I say, hasten to add. Now, John Shakespeare preparing the skins at the back of the house. So where we now have this lovely garden, that is not how William Shakespeare would remember it when he was growing up there. There was a working yard at the back there. Preparing animal skins is a nasty business. I don't want to put you off your lunch. But what you have to do is soak them in animal and human urine. And that's just for starters. After that it gets worse. As I say, we're coming up for lunch, I won't go on. But the smell of that process is something you have to think about. The house would look like this, but on a hot day particularly, it would not smell like this. Now, the skins take up to a year at that time to prepare from start to finish from a, I hate to say it, but a dead animal to a glove is quite a long journey, and all of that really is happening here. So the work on the skins is done at the back, the gloves are made here, and then John Shakespeare is selling the gloves directly out of the window. This is his instant shop window at that time. No glass in this part of the house, just shutters. He's selling directly out of the window. This isn't really a shop as such. You're not going to come in here because there's bits of dead animal on the floor and things, and the apprentices would be coming and going to the working yard, the smell. It is more, as a visitor described to me last week, the drive-by McDonald's of glove making, which I thought was a rather good description because that's what's happening. People are just walking along and everything is done through the open window. Now, some of the gloves, that you find the most expensive, some of the gloves will be real luxury items. Only the wealthiest members of Stratford society will be able to afford white kid. This is baby goat. In the 21st century, I'm an animal lover and a vegetarian, but we have none of that in the 16th century. The baby animals, softer skin, and kid was a great status symbol at that time. If you could afford a pair of these, you wanted everybody to know about it. So what they would do, and you see this often in lovely portraits, paintings of that period, and much later, you will see a pair of gloves just tucked at the waist. And this is the accessory of the moment. This is the Gucci handbag of the 1570s. You chuck a very expensive pair of gloves there and walk through the streets of Stratford, everybody would know exactly how much money you'd spent. And status is incredibly important to them at that time. I should mention William Shakespeare, the man himself. That's why we're here. We know that William Shakespeare doesn't become a glove maker like his father. But what's interesting is that throughout the plays, William Shakespeare goes on to write as an adult. There are over 70 references to gloves and the business of glove making. Some very, very specific things to do with the sort of properties of individual skins, the tools, lots of imagery which he uses, which is very much William Shakespeare, the glove maker's son, just using what he would have grown up with here. And what we think is that when he leaves school, about kind of 14 to 15 years old, after that, at least for part of the sort of later teenage years, he was actually in here working with his father. Good for William Shakespeare. He was always a hard worker. That's a hard about the man. But no wonder he thought to himself, there's got to be an easier way of making a living. I think living next door to a tannery would inspire you, possibly, to think of alternatives. I'm sure the tannery wasn't the only inspiration. Do feel free to try on a glove if you're They have not been prepared in the strictly 16th century way, so you'll be perfectly safe. But they have all been handmade to give you very much an idea of the glass that would have been made and sold out of this very window. I particularly recommend the rabbit skin line mittens. We don't need them today, but I'm sure in time we will. Lovely rabbit fur, all the lining, cost you extra. It would be worth it. This is a lovely one as well. This is also kid skin. It's been dyed black, which gives it this extra softness. I do have a little. John Shakespeare wouldn't work here on his own, I should explain. He's going to have 2 or 3 apprentices working for him, who would also live in as part of the household. So that's quite a lot of things. That's a good choice. Oh yes, excellent.
Пожалуйста, подойдите здесь. Вот видите, он тоже покупал шеф. Там есть шеф, потому что вы видели много барашек в районе. А это экземпляр его работы. Видите, он продавал перчатки, тоже делал кожаные. Так, это были его версии. И вот прямо
Здравствуйте, у меня прекрасная семья.
это окно было в комнате, где родился
Yeah, it was a decent townhouse. It really is a decent-sized house. Quite an expensive house at the time. John Shakespeare didn't have it built. It was already here by the time he bought it. He had rented rooms here previously, so he knew about it. He knew it was a good house. And it is. It's a well-proportioned, well-sized house. And some people have said to me, yeah, I wouldn't mind living here. And that's all well and good. And I say to them, well, have you seen any bathrooms or toilets yet? They're a bit lacking. Here it is. Here's the ensuite. That's what you used. And of course, when you used it, you didn't throw the contents away. It's very valuable. It can be used in the tannery. It can be used for treating the animal skins for making the leather. So all the contents you can apart, you take it out.